We recently visited the Udvar-Hazy Center to check out the plane's space shuttle and discovered even more. It wasn't the trip I planned, but it turned out to be an epic pop culture scavenger hunt. Welcome to Pop Culture Passport, your ultimate guide to quirky and cool destinations across the US. I'm your host, Beth Scalacci, aka the Roman Yeti, here to help you dive into the world of theme parks, uncover film and TV locations, and explore quirky museums, roadside attractions, and legendary venues that capture the heart and soul of this unique country. So grab your pop culture passport and let's discover destinations that resonate with your interest, not just with what's trending on social media. Are you ready? Let's roam! Welcome back. Living in the DC area, we realize it's been a long time since we've explored the Smithsonian museums. So, as part of our summer side quest, we decided to head to Northern Virginia to visit the Udvar-Hazy Center. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't go into this trip expecting to record an episode for it. At first glance, it's a museum filled with aircraft that it just didn't seem like the most obvious match for a pop culture stop. But after a little Google searching and honestly some curiosity fueled wandering, the day turned into a bit of a scavenger hunt, tracking down planes we recognized from film and television. Now, I'll get to all those pop culture connections in a bit, but you know we have to start with a little bit of history, right? So the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center opened in 2003 as an extension of the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. The main museum on the National Mall has long been one of the Smithsonian's most visited museums. But by the 1990s, they were running out of space, like literally, for some of their largest and most important artifacts. And that's where the Udvar-Hazy Center came in. Located next to Dulles International Airport in Chantilly, Virginia, the center was designed to house aircraft, spacecraft, and aviation artifacts too large for the downtown location. The building itself feels like a hangar crossed with a museum. It's huge, it's open, and it's really designed to let these artifacts sort of breathe and like almost come to life. Its creation was made possible through a significant donation from Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy, a Hungarian-American businessman and aviation enthusiast. His contributions helped turn the vision of a second, larger aviation museum into a reality. And just like the Downtown Air and Space Museum, it's part of the Smithsonian, so it's both world-class and free to visit, aside from a parking fee, but we'll talk about that later. When you walk into the Udvar-Hazy Center, the first thing that hits you is the sheer size of the place. This isn't your typical museum gallery with a few display cases and a velvet rope. It is a towering open hangar where planes are all over the floor and they're suspended from the rafters. They look like they could take flight at any moment. It's amazing. The main hangar houses some of the most iconic aircraft and spacecraft throughout history. And honestly, even if you're not a huge aviation geek, which I am not, the scale and significance of these artifacts is hard to ignore. And just the sheer size, you will be impressed and in awe. So, here's just a few of the really big major highlights that you can see there. Just the Space Shuttle Discovery. It's displayed with its heat-scarred tiles and mission badges, and it anchors that space exhibit. There is an SR-71 Blackbird, which is so sleek and otherworldly. It's the fastest, or was the fastest jet-powered aircraft in the world. And it looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie, and we'll talk about that in a moment too. And then there's the Enola Gay, the B-29 Super Fortress that played that pivotal and honestly somber role in World War II history. And there are dozens of rare, experimental, and classic aircraft from early aviation pioneers to Cold War jets to the kinds of planes that might have hung from your bedroom ceiling as a kid. And beyond the main hangar, there's a separate wing dedicated to restoration work where you can peek in on conservation projects. And there's also an observation tower where you can watch planes take off and land at Dulles Airport. It's just all this reminder that the story of aviation isn't finished. It's all happening just beyond the walls of that museum. Now, as I mentioned, walking into that museum is awe-inspiring, and you really have no idea sort of where to look first. The aircraft are so big, and I walk around asking myself the whole time, like, how is it possible these actually stayed in the air or in space? Which leads to no surprises that physics was not my best subject in high school. But once you sort of collect yourself and you decide like where you're going to start in the museum, I brought up my notes app and I began my search because I had Googled ahead of time if there were any connections or, planes that maybe we saw in a movie but wasn't necessarily a screen used plane. So had my notes app in hand and I started my search. So I'm just going to give you sort of what some pop culture ties that I found in no particular order because really you can walk in any direction in that museum and you will eventually get to the place you're looking for. So I want to start with a few direct tie-ins to pop culture, and the first one is parts of Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen were actually filmed at the center. In the movie Jetfire, an old Autobot transforms from an SR-71 Blackbird into the Autobot. And again, that plane is like the central part of the museum. You can also find the mothership from Close Encounters of the Third Kind there. It's actually a model of the ship, and it's part of the Smithsonian's film and television collection in the space section. And it really showcases how aviation and space themes have inspired pop culture. It's a very cool area, and just to see that model there is a lot of fun. Also in that film and television collection, you can see sci-fi toys from Star Wars, Star Trek, Buck Rogers, and I really had this fun, cool collection of like toy ray guns. A lot of them were like the older toys. It was just really neat to see. And then another sort of direct tie um, is there's an Air Tractor AT-301 crop duster there. And they have it painted exactly like Dusty Crop Hopper from the Disney movie Planes. No surprise when we got over there were a lot of kids hanging out, checking it out, but it was really cool to see that animated plane sort of brought into into real life. And now we're going to cue up Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone because it's Top Gun time. Now, while the museum, again, doesn't have the actual screen used plane, you can see models that match what was in the films. From the original Top Gun, you can find a Grumman F-14 Tomcat and a North American P-51 Mustang. The SR-71 Blackbird that I've already mentioned a few times, that actually inspired the Dark Star jet in the movies. And from Maverick, you will recognize the Super Hornet FA 18E/F. I hope I'm saying these right. Um, they don't have that exact plane there, but they have the predecessor, which is the FA-13C Hornet. So you can get an idea of sort of what those look like. It's just really cool to know that these planes have played roles in these movies, and you can see, pretty up close what they look like. Another plane that they have on display that is so cool is the Air France Concorde FBVFA. This iconic jet has popped up in pop culture a bunch of times. Um, most notably in the disaster movie Airport 79, The Concorde. It was in Moonraker when James Bond flies on one. And it was also in Coming to America when Prince Akeem and Semi arrive in the US. Now, it's also been said that Paul McCartney actually chartered his own Concorde for a tour. So that's a little crazy, but Sir Paul can do that, I'm sure. And finally, my favorite discovery of the day, it took a little digging, but because I had the Jock Lindsay episode fresh in my mind, um, I found the Grumman G-21 Goose amphibious aircraft. And again, like I said, it was fresh in my mind. So I had to see if they had the plane that our friend Jock Lindsay flew in the opening scenes of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And, I had to track it down. It was a lot of fun too. Like I said, it's sort of hide and seek. You find a plane and then you got to find it in the museum. There are plenty of other connections too, especially in the spacecraft area, but I wanted to just sort of give you a few of my favorites from the day. So, like many Smithsonian museums, the Udvar-Hazy Center is free to visit. You heard that right, no admission fee. But heads up, if you're driving, parking will cost you $15 per car. Once you're inside the museum, there's a Shake Shack cafe, which is pretty impressive for a hotel. I mean, for a museum restaurant. So if you need to refuel between all that walking around, you can definitely get a burger or a shake there. You can also bring water or snacks into the airport, into the museum, but you can't into the exhibit halls themselves. No drinks or food allowed at all. There's an IMAX theater, which screens aviation and space documentaries, along with occasional mainstream movies. Tickets for that are extra. So, check ahead of time to see if there's something you're interested in seeing and want to add to your list. If you're an airplane watching kind of person, don't miss the observation tower. From there, you can watch planes take off and land at Dulles. And finally, one of my favorite little bonuses is the restoration hangar. They have these large windows and you can see, I'm sure if you're there during the week, we were on the weekend, so we didn't see any of the teams working, but they're carefully restoring these planes and stuff into their former glory. And it's just really, really cool to watch and see what they're doing. And that, this is a place about preserving the past, not just showing off cool airplanes. So like I said, we did not go to Udvar-Hazy with the intention of making pop culture connections, but we did. And I think that's what I love about travel so much. Even, a short side quest day trip, you can find pieces of your favorite stories in the most unexpected places. Whether it's a space shuttle, a spy plane, or a little crop duster from a Disney movie, it's all connected by the stories we tell and the things that inspire us. And I hope you're having as much fun making these connections as I am. It's it's just a lot of fun. And it's sort of crazy when you look for things in places you weren't expecting. But with that, we add another stamp to our pop culture passport. I hope that this episode inspires you to get out and explore all that's quirky and cool, even in your own backyard. Get out on those summer side quests, okay? Soon there'll probably be fall side quest. We'll keep it going, don't worry. Follow, download, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Please tell a friend and leave a review if you like what we're doing. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search for The Roaming Yeti. So keep roaming and finding your fun.